Most of us were taught a very specific, narrow version of biblical history. It goes like this: humanity failed a moral test in the Garden of Eden, we were cast out, and the rest of the Bible is God trying to fix that single human mistake. But if you peel back that sanitized Sunday school version, the ancient Israelites and New Testament writers tracked history through a compounding, three-tiered cosmic rebellion. The text itself outlines a history of divine administration, supernatural geography, and a global legal reclamation project. To actually see this framework, we have to clear the board and correct a basic misunderstanding regarding the language used to describe the spiritual realm. Reading the Bible without this cosmic legal context reduces a global, multidimensional rescue mission into a localized Sunday school lesson. In modern English Bibles, the Hebrew word Elohim is almost always translated as God with a capital G. We treat it like a unique proper name. The text, however, uses the exact same word to describe angels, demons, and even the disembodied human spirit of the dead prophet Samuel when he is called up by a medium at Endor. The word Elohim is a place of residence descriptor. Just as American or Earthling tells you where someone is from, Elohim identifies any entity native to the spiritual realm. Yahweh is an Elohim because he resides there, but he sits entirely alone at the apex as the unique, uncreated creator. Below him are the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, his heavenly administration. They operate as a complex government with specific offices, including prosecutorial roles like the Satan, a title meaning the adversary, essentially a cosmic intelligence officer testing loyalty. Because heaven operates as a hierarchical government staffed by free-willed administrators, there is a constant capacity for cosmic treason, and that treason drives the rest of the biblical narrative. This brings us to the second Great Rebellion, recorded in Genesis 6 in the days of Noah, where the sons of God intermarried with the daughters of men. A common interpretation claims this is a story about the righteous human line of Seth marrying the wicked human line of Cain. But the ancient readers understood this as a massive preemptive military strike. In Genesis 3, God declared war, prophesying that a specific human descendant, the seed of the woman, would eventually arrive to crush the serpent. If the executioner must come from a pure human bloodline, the rogue spiritual beings, often called Watchers, had a clear strategy: hybridize the human genome to biologically disqualify humanity from producing an uncorrupted messianic vessel. The Hebrew text implies a violent abduction. This interbreeding produced the Nephilim, biological anomalies and dangerous demigods that violated the cosmic order of kinds established in Genesis 1. When you look closely at the text, the resulting global flood is framed as a severe biological quarantine. The Bible explicitly describes Noah as being perfect in his generations, using a Hebrew term meant for unblemished sacrificial animals. His family's pedigree was genetically uncontaminated by the Watcher incursion. God washed away the infection to save the patient. The flood acted as a necessary hard reset to ensure the seed of the woman could still arrive. The human bodies of the Nephilim were destroyed in the floodwaters, but the spiritual entities who orchestrated the rebellion could not drown. Both 2 Peter and Jude address this directly. They state that the rebellious angels who left their proper domain were cast down into chains of darkness. Peter specifically uses the Greek verb tartarou, referencing Tartarus, the deepest abyssal prison reserved for the ancient Titans, to describe where these watchers are currently locked up. But their hybrid children, the Nephilim, faced a different fate. Their physical bodies died in the deluge. According to the Second Temple Jewish theology that Jesus and his disciples grew up with, demons are not fallen angels. Fallen angels are chained in the abyss. Demons are the wandering, disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim, trapped with no place in heaven or the natural earth. This distinct origin explains their behavior in the Gospels. It is why demons constantly seek biological houses to inhabit, and why they beg Jesus not to cast them into the abyss. They know that is where their fathers are imprisoned. The waters receded, but the enemy's strategy evolved. The Third Great Rebellion occurs at the Tower of Babel, shifting the conflict from genetic corruption to geographic and jurisdictional authority. Most modern Bibles rely on a later translation of Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8, which says God divided the nations according to the sons of Israel. But Israel did not exist at the time of Babel. Looking at older manuscripts like the Dead Sea Scrolls reveals the original reading. God divided the nations according to the number of the sons of God. This functions as a cosmic divorce decree, where Yahweh formally disowned the 70 rebellious nations. Because they refused his authority, Yahweh outsourced the management of these 70 nations to the lesser Elohim of his divine council. Immediately after this, he called Abraham out of those territories to create a brand new nation, Israel, as his sole private estate. The geopolitical map of the ancient world was drawn along the jurisdictional lines of assigned spiritual entities. The divine managers assigned to lead those nations decided to become the masters. They stopped pointing people to Yahweh and began accepting worship for themselves. This rogue administration fueled the rise of the historical pantheons in Egypt, Babylon, and Greece. The Bible asserts that these ancient gods were not imaginary. They were real, rebellious members of the divine council, setting up counterfeit households. The human empires built upon this corrupt system demanded blood sacrifice, instituted chaotic wars, and enslaved humanity to fear. God responds in Psalm 82. This chapter is a formal legal sentencing hearing where Yahweh stands in the divine assembly and judges these specific rogue gods for their failure to defend the poor and the fatherless. He acknowledges their status as Elohim, but issues a final eviction notice. Their divine tenure is revoked, and God declares they will die like mortal men, losing their immortality. The Old Testament documents Yahweh and his portion, Israel, engaged in a sprawling cosmic spiritual war to reclaim occupied territory. A legal judgment is only words on a page until someone enforces it. In the New Testament, the arrival of Jesus is the true Son entering occupied territory to execute the verdict of Psalm 82. You see this in his earthly ministry. Jesus takes his disciples on a strategic trip to Caesarea Philippi, located at the base of Mount Hermon. According to ancient traditions, Mount Hermon was ground zero. It was the exact location where the Watchers originally descended to execute the Genesis 6 rebellion. Standing at a literal cave known historically as the Gates of Hell, Jesus looks at the headquarters of the cosmic rebellion and formally announces that he is building his church and taking the territory back. 6 days later, Jesus goes up that same mountain and is transfigured. Yahweh peels back the veil of Christ's humanity, officially introducing the uncorrupted, loyal Son to the rogue Elohim. It is a direct declaration of war. From that point forward, every healing and exorcism Jesus performs functions as a tactical raid. He is binding the strong man and plundering the enemy's household. The final blow arrives on the cross. Paul writes in Colossians 2 that at the crucifixion, Jesus publicly disarmed the principalities and powers, stripping the rogue sons of God of their authority. The cross achieved individual atonement and executed the definitive legal disarmament of the rogue cosmic administration. A legal victory still needs to be communicated to the occupied territories. Pentecost in Acts 2 is the direct sequel to the Tower of Babel. When the Holy Spirit descends and the disciples speak in tongues, the text lists the nations: Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Rome. These groups map directly back to the 70 territories handed over to the rogue Elohim in Genesis 11. Speaking God's works in those languages was a strategic broadcast back into enemy territory, signaling that the cosmic divorce was over and Yahweh was reclaiming the nations. This means the Great Commission is a cosmic deportation order for the rogue managers and an adoption decree for humanity. We see where this reclamation campaign ends in Revelation chapter 7. John sees a great multitude standing before the throne, from every nation, tribe, people, and language. This diverse assembly represents the ultimate realization of the family God intended in Genesis 1, fully reversing the scattering of Babel. The rogue sons of God tried to build counterfeit households through domination and corruption. The true Son built the restored household through sacrifice and redemption. Personal forgiveness is vital, but ignoring the cosmic context shrinks the scope of the story. The biblical story is of a cosmic king launching a rescue mission behind enemy lines to reclaim his children and defeat the rogue gods forever.